Like a lot of people have been like, oh my God, like I was thinking about putting on this podcast, like applying to be like a Tim Ferriss podcast, but like there's no way I could do that. I'm like, well, you came to mind. Like it's not very difficult. Like it's
Welcome to this river community session with Shaggy Eells. He's a copywriter, world traveler, skier, and superhost on River.
I've been wanting to talk to Shaggy for a while because he's just a very striking person. When you meet him, you'll when you get to know him, you'll know what I mean. But he's also like one of our best hosts on River, or maybe the best host on River. I don't know. It's hard to quantify, but he's in Salt Lake City. He's been hosting events for My First Million, the All In podcast, Tim Ferriss, and Don't Die. And I could have missed one. So just like a host with the most. And then I began to know Shaggy a bit more too. So we met at an All In meetup in San Francisco. He's a copywriter, big skier, and an Eagle Scout, which I want to ask you about because
yes,
that is incredibly a big accomplishment.
Thank you. I'm surprised you found that.
What did I miss? Tell me more. Tell us more. What did I miss?
I live in a van. I did the whole digital nomad travel the world thing for about 5 years, and now I'm mostly in Utah. But I'm still living in a van and traveling a fair bit.
Nice. And then, do you just have a co-working membership? Is that where you are now?
Yes. Yeah, I'm inside a co-working spot.
Amazing. Okay. The van life. I was seriously considering it for some time, but it's quite the commitment.
Yeah, you got to get rid of a lot of things. I'm definitely a bit of a minimalist.
I love that. Do you have a good coffee situation, or do you not drink coffee?
I don't drink coffee.
That's my problem. That's why I can't do it. Awesome. And then what was it like being an Eagle Scout? I'm sure that wasn't like that common in growing up.
Correct. It was very, very uncommon. I don't know. The only people I knew who were in Boy Scouts were the people who were in Boy Scouts. Like going to in school and in sports and stuff, there's like all the different troops in like a little bit different areas. And I was never have like overlap of meeting other Boy Scouts. And then it was amazing, honestly, because like I was one of the youngest people. There's like a gap. There's like a 2 or 3 year gap of there just wasn't a bunch of kids my age, which is great for me because I literally just always hung out with older people, like my brother's age, who's 2 years older than me. So we were able to hang out with them and like just like learn from them and be around older people was like a really good experience when you're like a young kid.
I'm sure you use your like Eagle Scout skills now, like on the mountain and I don't know, being super outdoorsy.
Be prepared is one of the mottos for Boy Scouts, and I would say I'm quite prepared. Usually I go around with everything I own. Yeah.
Very prepared host. And then what brought you to Salt Lake City?
Yeah, so of everywhere I traveled to, I was spending the most amount of time in Salt Lake. So I'd spend 1 to 2 months here every year, half because of the skiing, half because I have a bunch of great friends in this area. And so when I was looking to start an events company and to like somewhat settle down, have more roots in an area, I was like, where do I want to go? And the natural answer was Salt Lake because I'd already spent the most time there. So it's kind of like life had told me that's where I wanted to be the most.
Can you tell me what you're working on now? Like when you're not hosting My First Million meetup?
I started an event company. I picked a super generic name, just SLC Events. So I've been doing like free and paid events. The last paid event I did was called Panel Ball. So it's half panel discussion, half pickleball tournament. And I got the founder of chess.com to come out and give a talk about bootstrapping his company to over 100 million a year in revenue and how he like delegates and manages the tasks between 750 global employees. That was he's a massive business. He's like 30 minutes away from where I'm sitting right now. So he's like super close. And yeah, no office, no nothing. He just runs out of his house. He's got 2 co-founders and bootstrapped. They took a secondary like maybe 5-10 years ago. But other than that, like completely bootstrapped. So it's like great to be able to talk to him for a bit. And he's a monster of a pickleball player. So we had after he talked for a bit, I like interviewed him, doing Q&A from the audience. And then we all just turned around and played pickleball because we were in a pickleball venue.
This is like
so he did pretty well. He got second because I gave the winners $100 cash. But there's 2 tech girls that were like sharks. They're like they actually play competitively together to like try to win money and stuff. So they ended up beating him. But other than that, he was really good at pickleball. But yeah, it was a fun event. So I'll do another one of those coming up pretty soon here. But I've just been playing around with like different event format in like building a community and such in Salt Lake City.
Why are you doing events? Like why IRL events? Like why host? Why go?
So during traveling full time, my favorite part was always meeting people and having unique experiences with them. Like even some of like the worst weather in like some boring areas, you have amazing times because of the people. And so I realized that stood out. And so I was like, all right, like everyone's kind of sheltered themselves and like socially fatigued, I guess you'd say, after COVID. So I knew I wanted to like bring people together and like build a business doing that. So just like and just like getting people together, I was kind of naturally always doing it with like dinners and like skiing and like 4 to 8 people pretty frequently, like every now and again. So doing like a more structured party and like more people just like felt like a natural thing for me to do.
So you're kind of famous to me anyway for your best, like you have the best conversation starters and icebreakers. And you tend to like tailor them to like extremely specifically like per community, and I'm always blown away.
Mm-hmm.
So can you just like tell me about like why you do that, what some of your best ones are?
Real quick, with conversation starters versus icebreakers, those are quite a bit different because one's a group and one is one-on-one. So I would definitely like not use, I mean, there's a few of them that translate over, but most of them I would not use. Like you just have better ones. So with conversation starter, I like to talk about things outside of work, because everyone goes to like a tech work and they're like, oh, what do you do for work? Is like a very, very common question. So what I like to say is, outside of work, what are some of your favorite things to do? And that way you get them talking about like their hobbies or their family or some trip they went on recently. That's pretty fun. You actually get to know them as a person. And then also asking them, what are you most excited about in the next month? That way you can see like what they've planned and what they've got going on. And that way it's really good to just like talk to them about like whatever makes them excited or what's their favorite thing. Like you just get to hear their life from their perspective. And it's like all irrelevant or somewhat irrelevant to work, which is kind of nice.
I think we should do that one right now before we move on.
What are you most excited about next month?
Ariel, what she's most excited about.
I guess to get a baby and not be pregnant. I'm over it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That does sound like an exciting thing.
Yeah. I mean, I have a 3.5-year-old daughter, and so basically everything and anything involving her. We just had like our first, because she was a pandemic baby. So like this weekend was like nonstop plans with her friends and like their parents and stuff. Right. So, it's like a taste of what's to come, which was fun. So, there you go.
It's a tough one. There's a few things, I guess, maybe just because it's top of mind. For my team, I just scheduled a little retreat at this, rented out a whole like historic mansion in rural Pennsylvania. And so we're combining that with some other client meetings and stuff, but we're going to like have our run of the place and just hang out in this kind of like small town, have like good dinner and get private tours by the curator and everything. So I'm looking forward to that.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, I'm also in Pennsylvania. Where's rural
Pennsylvania? So I'm in Atlanta, but this is going to be in Mercersburg.
Okay.
Do you know where that is at all?
No, but I'm in Philly, so now I'm interested. I'm going to go
Philly,
Google.
It's actually great. So actually, I can send you the link. It's relatively new. It's called Lane House Inn. It's the historic home of Harriet Lane, the first lady, which actually was a niece, not a wife of a president. So she was the niece of Buchanan, which until recently was ranked the worst president in history. So yeah, it's actually a really interesting, fun place. I know the guy that runs it. If you ever want to go, let me know. I'll give you his info.
Shaggy, what are you most excited about?
On Thursday, I'm flying out to California, and we have a family reunion. There'll be about 15 of us. So I get to see my little cousins, my aunts, uncles, brother, dad, grandma. And so the little cousins are 13-year-old twins. So they're way too much fun. I can pick them up and throw them around and tickle them and do a bunch of fun, ridiculous things. So I'm excited to see them and the rest of my family, because I'll be about 4 days long.
I'd say for me, I mean, the work thing is I'm trying to close this pre-seed round and it's killing me. So everything after that sounds great. But once we do that, similarly to you, Van, I'm going to bring my teammates out to Portsmouth, and everyone's been working so hard this year. Every weekend, everyone's been working. So I hope we can close this round and then bring everyone together and do like a lobster bake and go swimming in the ocean. Although it'll be very chilly, it'll be nearly a cold plunge. But that's what I'm looking forward to the most. Fingers crossed.
Sounds awesome.
Conversation starters and icebreakers.
And then as far as like icebreakers go, that's definitely like specific to the group or the reason you're getting the group together. So for like a My First Million podcast, I feel like I've had some good icebreakers with that. Asking people how they made their first money, like very first way they made money. It's usually not a job. It's usually like, I sold candy or something like that. It's like there's a lot of good stories that people will share about that. Also like saying like, hey, which one's your favorite podcast host? Or like, what's one thing you've implemented into your life from the podcast? An icebreaker I used for the Tim Ferriss meetup was like, what have you optimized in your life and how from Tim Ferriss content? We got some like really unique answers on that. It was like cool to like figure out what people actually care about, and that's like a great like conversation starter when you break up the icebreaker.
I found that with Don't Die with Brian Johnson's group, a surprising number of people were there for skincare. Like I think of Brian and I think of like, you know, blueprint, eating vegan, taking like all the supplements all day. Then I think of like the workout routine, because his workout routine is surprisingly short.
Yes.
But like a ton of people were there, mostly women, because they wanted to like know his like youthful skincare routine. And I thought it was an interesting like hook for him that maybe he didn't know about, like didn't realize that was like a way a lot of people were discovering him, especially women. So yeah, it's always interesting to like get out in the field and see what people are actually doing and talking about. One thing I wanted to talk about, so I did a session like this with Nick Rae last week, and I noticed that some of his tips and some of my tips are like really different. And then I realized that like a lot of times he's hosting where like the thing everyone has in common is that he invited them to the event, or that like they know him in some way. Whereas like most of the events I host, everyone has like a very specific, like super fan niche thing in common already. So like, have you noticed there's a difference in how you approach things there, and like what are you seeing there?
Yeah, there's definitely a huge difference. Some of the first events I hosted were just like general business and tech meetups on meetup.com. And it was honestly like too wide of a topic. Like a lot of people didn't have much in common. So that was like, it wasn't like a huge issue, but it was like a little bit of an issue. And then whenever I do just like meetups for friends, like only invite only, like no internet marketing basically, that's like nice, but it's definitely like a lot different because like people are just like trying to make more friends or like plan something out for that week. Like, let's go biking, let's go skiing. So it's definitely a different vibe. And then for the community focused ones, those ones are honestly, I love those the most because everyone's like a nerd in that sort of sense. And it's like they don't have people around them they can nerd out about with in that topic matter. And then you just get a bunch of nerds in the same topic in the same room. And they're like, oh my God, I've never been able to talk to people about this ever before. And it's like, you can really just like build momentum and get people like excited about like their own projects and the future plans and just be able to talk a lot.
Yeah. One of Nick's tips last week was to do the 24-hour reply all email, where for 24 hours only, everyone can like reply and like, this is my bag, this is what I'm doing, whatever. And he's like, yeah, no one wants to be like dropped into a WhatsApp group. And I was like, oh, it's interesting because like everyone that I do events with wants to be in the WhatsApp group because they're like, you know, in the case of My First Million, it's other like scrappy side hustle entrepreneurs who also live in Boston. So like they have a reason to like continue staying in touch and getting together. But if you're just invited to a friend of a friend's dinner party, you might not want to stay in touch long term. So I thought that was kind of interesting how, because obviously Nick is a fantastic host and knows what he's doing, but you know, the format or the structure is just really different depending on how you're bringing people together. Can you talk a little bit about the disconnect, and then maybe we can have other people chime in too about like what's happening with like being chronically online? And I am feeling like people are starting to reemerge from COVID, even though it feels like COVID was a while ago.
Yeah.
I don't know. I still feel like we're still thawing out. Like what are you seeing or feeling with people?
I agree. Like a lot of people are still thawing out. Specifically, like I feel like the younger generation, like anyone, I don't know, maybe everyone under 40 roughly, they've had so much tech in their life that like it's a really easy source of entertainment and dopamine that when you're like, oh, it's COVID, and you're like, hey, I either can't or don't want to go see people, that it's like it really increased like your usage of computers and such and phones. And then it just like really tore apart communities in like a bad way. And then even that now we've been able to like see each other for like 2-3 years now. I forget the dates, but it's still like a lot of people like kind of forgot how to socialize, or they just have they're just like rusty at socializing, so they're anxious about going and socializing. So it takes a lot of effort for somebody to be like, hey, instead of going inside your own house where you're completely comfortable after a full day of work, you should come out and hang out with us. And by the way, you don't know anyone. Is like that's kind of like a big ask for a lot of people, which makes sense. But it's like hard, like getting them like basically just off the couch or out of their own room is like the hardest part by far I've experienced. And then usually once you get them out and about, then they're just like infinitely more happy. And they're like, oh, I was worried about this. I thought these crazy things were going to happen. They're all unrealistic. And then that way, yeah, it's just like helping to fight the loneliness epidemic.
Ariel, are you seeing things like that, or what are you feeling?
Totally. I mean, I really relate to everything Shaggy's saying. I'm definitely more of an introvert, and after like a full day of work, it's like getting to the gym is the hardest part. Once you're in the gym, you're happy you're in the gym. But it's that, and I've caught myself like sign up for things and then bail because I'm too tired. But I feel better when I go to them. And I'm trying to like create that. I just moved back to Philly after a couple of years being elsewhere. So I'm definitely trying to cultivate that in-person stuff. But yeah, getting people to commit, finding people, and then it's the consistency over and over again. That's how I think you build relationships. Is like, you don't just see someone once, you have to keep seeing them, keep spending time with them.
I think COVID, we all got really comfortable with like making excuses, and like, and a lot of them were valid, but it was just like bowing out of plans, I feel like has just become extremely common and like extremely accepted to just be like, oh, you know, and which, you know, I'm not judging, like I get that too, but I try to like keep my word. Like if I say I'm going to if I'm going to RSVP to something, I'm going, like, I really try to keep my word. But I notice a lot of people are just kind of opting out there. And then I'm also noticing just overall effort levels from like even I host a Christmas party every year, and it's a huge bash, and we feed everyone, and we have a live band, and we play like a Christmas Carol sing along. And I get lyric books printed, and like my friend Brian shows up dressed as an elf. Like it's a whole thing. And you can just see like pre-COVID, post-COVID, people are just less likely to dress up and like honor that occasion and honor that vibe I'm setting. They're less likely to show up on time. They're less likely to leave early or like have some reason to opt out. And I'm just like, oh man, guys, it's once a year. Just do it. You'll be so happy you did.
I have something on that topic. So I've actually recently joined the board of my local chamber of commerce, right? Which are like, oh, chambers of commerce, like weird, right? But no, like it's a lot of small business owners. So of which I am a local small business owner, even though I have a virtual business, right? So everybody shows up to everything because we're literally all paying to be there, right?
Yes.
Like you pay to be a member. And then even as a member, you just get a discounted rate on events. And they're not expensive, $15, but we have phenomenal attendance because we're charging. And it's a nonprofit because it's the Chamber of Commerce. So the money all goes back into food for the event, stuff for the event. Maybe we're just really subsidizing tickets partially, and we're paying for our holiday luncheon. It's only like the tickets only pay for 50% of the cost, and we're using membership costs and other sponsorship revenue to pay for the rest, right? So like when you charge something de minimis, people will show because they've got that sunk cost, and that money's going to the event. If they know that, it's like, okay, where everyone's paying $5, we're going to have appetizers, we're going to have drinks, we're going to have whatever, right? Like, I think that's a way to solve that problem.
Yeah. The attendance rate when people pay for something is like 99%, maybe higher.
Yeah.
Even if it's like $5 or $10, I've noticed total show up rate, which is kind of cool. So Shaggy, like you're doing copywriting and I'm assuming that's like marketing driven writing work. Are you seeing the community and events fitting in as part of like a growth strategy for your business and your clients, or do you see those as separate too?
It could have been a good way to grow copywriting. I've slimmed down copywriting to focus on hosting paid events.
Oh, great.
So that Yeah, so that way, like I've just said no to all the people, but I've honestly had more people since I've been in one spot, going to a lot of events and talking to people. I've actually had more people want to work with me than I did when I was like traveling, just because I'm like naturally meeting so many people. And if someone likes you, they're pretty interested in working with you. So going to events, you just meet so many more people. And then with community, I think it's like a huge part in growth because like you want to just like the 5 people you spend the most time with is a reflection of who you're going to be. It's like a very popular quote, but it's extremely true. And then also, like, it's just a support group of like, whether it's mentally or like physically or something, just having like a community of people to like, A, rely on, but B, just enjoy the journey with is like really mentally amazing.
I'm in the group. It's not even a group. It's not even so. It's 3 founders. I met them in New York when I was pre-COVID. So I met them in 2018, 2019. And we've been meeting pretty much every Wednesday since 2019, let's say, just for 30 minutes. And the agreement is if you're in the TSA line, you can just dial in on audio. If I'm like sweaty from the gym or I look like a raccoon because I just got out of the shower and I'm in a rush and my mascara is still so much, like the agreement is just like, no, just come. Like, doesn't matter how you look, what you're like, where you are, just come. And we're all like Aaron's kind of more indie SaaS. Jay has an e-commerce like physical product that he invented and sells, and I'm more in like SaaS. And so we don't even have like that much in common besides the fact that we all met in New York and we're friends. But what's because we've been meeting consistently, it is just worth like millions of dollars in coaching basically, because when something comes up, I don't have to give them the whole spiel. Like, well, this happened, this person, this history, and they already know it. And so they're like, wait, that? And then they can just instantly either just, be like, shit, man, that sucks, or give great advice. And it's the consistency that is just so valuable.
Yeah, it really is.
Why are people so tepid about hosting? And then some people just like dive right in. I've noticed there's like a huge difference between seemingly capable, smart, like social people who just like are terrified of hosting.
I'd say it's from fear of judgment. They think like, oh, I've never really done this. I don't know how I'm quite do it, which is everyone in this world. And then they're just like, oh, but like all these bad things are going to happen. And they're all like unreasonable expectations of like how bad something could be. And so a lot of people are just afraid of like the social awkwardness or like the social pressure. And they literally just put it on themselves. But yeah, it's very common. Like a lot of people have been like, oh my God, like I was thinking about putting on this podcast, like applying to be like a Tim Ferriss podcast, but like there's no way I could do that. I'm like, well, you came to mind. Like it's not very difficult. Like it's kind of straightforward. I mean, you got to show up on time and all that, but other than that, it's quite rudimentary per se. So like a lot of people just have fear.
Yeah, I've noticed people are really worried about like logistics. They're just like, well, the first sign of a host that's not going to work out is they're like, let me go ask everyone else where they want to have it or when and where they want to have it. And I'm just like, no one's going to respond or meaningfully respond. You're going to get like no energy from it. And then you're just going to drag the timeline of like planning versus saying like, guys, we're going here. I'll see you at 5, whatever, being really direct. And so I think people are like, I think that comes from they're afraid because they want people to like it and want people to want to come. But it's like, no, people want to come because of your energy and your like confidence and assertiveness of bringing people together, not because you asked everyone's opinion on it.
Yeah.
And then giving people time to plan ahead. Like the longer you wait, the less likely the event is to come together because people just need to plan their lives. And then I also notice people are like really wound up about like number of people are going to show up because I'm just like, hey, if it's small and like the bar is too noisy, we'll just like go next door and like grab a taco and we can change the vibe. Or if it's too big, then like great, it'll be beautiful chaos and like won't it be funny how packed it was. And I think I'm just really comfortable with the up and down of the capacity of whatever it will be. And a lot of people aren't. They just like
one of my most favorite meetups was 4 of us. It was Andrew, Hankey, me, and 2 people from the internet, Robbie and Cubby.
Amazing.
And Yeah, and I had a whole venue booked out. It's just from the co-working spots was free, but it was still like a whole venue. And I was like, you could easily, like, if you have less than 15 people in there, it feels kind of empty. We have
Yep.
4 of us. And then we're like, for like 30 minutes in, we're like, oh yeah, let's go walk around the corner and get some tacos from the street truck.
I'm really curious because I know you've traveled so much. Are you seeing like differences across cities and cultures around kind of gathering? And I'm noticing event culture across cities from River, but you must notice it too.
Yeah, there's a huge difference. Especially, I mean, of course, like comparing US to Asia is like that's like insanely different. It's like it's just
Tell
so
me more.
different.
I've never been to Asia.
Well, so in general, like warmer places are usually like way more socializing. Like I love skiing, and like yes, skiing you get on a chairlift with other people, so you're like you're kind of forced to socialize. I love that, but in like warm, hot areas, it's like it's just so natural to just always be socializing, hanging out with other people, and then so places like Indonesia and Thailand and like rural Canada, it's like wherever people work less and travel less, they have like way more community event and like they want to like socialize and spend more time together just doing simple things. So yeah, being in like Asia, I've hosted an event out there in Bali, like just for some digital nomads, and everyone's just like no one left when I was like, all right, we're done. I'm gonna keep hanging out, but if you want to go home, like go for it. Like everyone just stayed, like everyone, which is kind of funny because usually in the U.S. it's like, oh yeah, I got work tomorrow. I got to go to the gym before work, and I need to be in 12 minutes. Which is like I'm kind of on that grind too, but it's like so like people are just more like relaxed. Like it's not like pressure to like perform, to have work and stuff, and that really just like multiplies how often and how much you're socializing.
I've noticed the same thing with warmer climates and certain cities. So very easy to get large groups together in San Francisco, LA, Miami, Austin, probably maybe to some degree Atlanta. I haven't had as much experience there because there's just huge outdoor like beer gardens or huge outdoor coffee shops. And it's just like, doesn't matter if you bring 50 people, like they can, it's a little uncomfortable, but they can handle it versus Boston and New York. And London, the weather's crap most of the year. All the restaurants are super tiny, so you just have to like plan better. Poor London. London is definitely the trickiest city to host. Like I noticed through River, we have like kind of a running joke. I mean, none of us really drink alcohol, but if we did, we'd have like a drinking game of like, go ahead and take a shot every time London's like calls us and is like, where do we have it? What do we do?
Yeah.
For London. Yeah, so I noticed there's like a certain infrastructure that needs to exist in big cities that can host and deal with a lot of people at like a smaller cost. I think that is probably something New York really needs to work on, and to some degree Boston. At least Boston has a lot more like, I feel like there's so many universities and there's so many like tighter relationships that you can kind of go to some of those spaces. But yeah, New York just feels like prohibitive because it's so expensive and everything's small.
Yeah.
And then how's the community in Salt Lake versus like San Francisco for tech community? I'm kind of curious.
It's definitely like smaller, but it feels like still quite large. Because when you look at the greater Salt Lake area, there's actually 2.1 million people here. Even though just within Salt Lake, it's just a couple 100,000. But like there's like it just keeps stretching out across this whole valley. So it's like 3 hours of driving like north to south from like Layton down to Spanish Fork. So there's like a huge area. And for some of these meetups, I'll get like people coming driving like an hour each way. I'm like, oh my God, like what, really? Like you came from Spanish Fork? Like it's probably kind of a surprise. But with the community, a lot of people are like extremely outdoorsy here. Like even if they're into business and tech and this and that, it's like everyone kind of has this similar ground of like, oh, I wasn't born here, and I came here for outdoors and for work.
Nice.
So a lot of like everything from skiing to running, biking, climbing. Like there's tons of that. So that's kind of like a side community to the tech community, which is kind of nice.
That's so nice too that your events can have activities in them, and I don't know. Yeah. Boston's a bit more academic. Van, do you want to tell us a little bit like what's going on in Atlanta? Just Atlanta tech scene, kind of interesting. I'm assuming you're in tech, but I actually don't know what you do.
Kind of. So a little bit of context. I've just been in Atlanta for a couple of years after a very long time in DC. So kind of listening to this conversation about like events pre-post COVID, and then kind of like comparing the two cities. I'm having trouble piecing apart the fact that it was so easy for me to pull like an event together in DC. You know, if you told me next week, let's have an event with 40 to 50 people there, I'd be like, that can do it, no problem. In 2019, right? I can't. I'm having trouble piecing apart like how much of that is pandemic versus me having a social network there, and then post-pandemic in Atlanta and not really having a network here. Because I've done some like internet pipes events here, and it's so much trouble to get anyone to show up. I got like put in a lot of work and got like 4 people to show up to an event that was outside.
Did you do the join or die
I
film
did,
screen?
and exactly 1 guy showed up to the screen.
Yeah, because I went to the Boston one. I'm not part of Internet Pipes, but I just snuck in and bought a ticket for it. And it was, 2 other people showed up besides us. So I don't know if it's Internet Pipes is just small or.
I'm having trouble figuring that out. I mean, in Atlanta, kind of like driving and parking, it's similar to LA. Like driving and parking is an issue. It's kind of like a smaller, like a much smaller Los Angeles in that respect.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm trying to pick that apart. But sorry, to get back to your original question, tech. There's a pretty good tech scene in Atlanta. So I actually live right by Georgia Tech, which tends to draw a lot of people there on that scene. I haven't found it to be as like actively engaged as some other cities. But again, I'm having trouble figuring out, is that just the fact that I don't really know a lot of people yet, so I don't have a big network, or what is it? But yeah, there is a scene, and there's a few tech organizations and a surprising number of like conferences that come here that you don't really think about. So I'm signing up for those, trying to build out that network.
How about Matt? What's going on in Chicago, the tech scene there?
I mean, people are busy and like we've had a lot of ebbs and flows and a lot of like, cause I'm one of the co-hosts for Twist for Chicago. And, you know, one event we had like 10 people, and then we've had like 4 of those 10 people and 1 new person at the next one. And then like 4 and like 1 of the same person from the previous one. And then like 1 new guy. So, you know, people are just busy building, and it's hard to, just to find a good time on a recurring schedule at a good place. Like we were supposed to meet at Starbucks Roastery, which is where we met a couple times before, but then it was closed, like everything above the first level for like some private event. And how the heck are we supposed to know? Because we're trying to find a free event, right? Or free space. So we're switching it up next month. Hopefully that's a better location, a little bit more centralized to public transport, because that is also a problem with Chicago. Is it's like the best spaces that we could get for free are not as conveniently located to public transportation. And frankly, a lot of people moved to the suburbs, myself included, during the pandemic. And so while it would be easy to be at an event with like 100 people in Chicago at like 1871 in the Merchandise Mart, like back in the day, like so many people just moved away to do the whole remote thing or just start a virtual company, which I've done. And, you know, so it's like, you know, getting back down to Chicago, like I don't love it personally. Like I host events at local things in the suburbs, and like we get decent attendance, but it'll never be what it could be if we're in Chicago, right?
Yeah, I've been, I think some of the next events I'm going to host are not going to be in downtown Boston. I call it like the outer rim. There's like Route 93, and then there's 495. And it's like, actually most people now have a car and like are happy to meet, you know, on a bit more of the outskirts where it's just easier to park, easier to get a space. So that's kind of a difference too. Ariel, I know you're just back in Philly, but what's the tech scene there?
Yeah, I've tried to do a few things. There is a tech scene. I think it's kind of small, or like smaller than I guess what I'm used to in like SF or New York. And then just like I hosted something a couple of weeks ago, but getting people, there's a lot of like what Matthew was saying, like a lot of people have moved to the suburbs of Philly, and so like getting people to come in, and then finding parking in the city is like a pain in the ass. I've really started to care about that myself. So yeah, it's been like hit or miss, and I think my approach is just like you got to keep taking swings, and like sometimes it's going to be like, yeah, 1 person shows up, but who cares? You meet 1 new person, you have a conversation. But I've been trying to like plug into different things, and it's been kind of like meh, nothing super great yet.
And I'm actually wondering, now that we're talking about this, if one of the strategies is to like meet for co-working and do an event. Like part of it's just be gone longer. Because if you're driving an hour in somewhere from the suburbs or 45 minutes, it's just like, do I really want to like drive in for 90 minutes and drive out? But I feel like if you were maybe co-working or getting some other things, I don't know, done at the same time, might be more appealing to people, because I'm more interested in going to Boston for the day than just driving in for like a quick meetup and facing traffic on both sides or something. So that could be interesting. Before we wrap up, Shaggy, like how can we help? What are you working on? Like, I know you're working on SLC events, but like what's good? What's new coming up for you? What should we know about?
Yeah, I just took like a little break for traveling and working on some other things. So pretty soon here, I'm gonna start planning out the next paid event. That's definitely what I'm most excited for. Do another panel ball. That would be pretty fun. I've learned what I could do better from the last one. What do I need help with? I mean, if anyone knows anyone in Salt Lake City that would introduce me to them, that'd be amazing. I always love meeting new people.
I will
go
actually
ahead.
be in Salt Lake City in September. So
Nice.
if you're still going to be there in September, I'll tell you the dates.
Yes, I will be.
We could do the whole in-person thing, which is crazy to think about. Let's see. I'll be there. It's like the middle of the week. It's for a conference called NiftyCon. I don't know if you ever heard of NiftyCon. They used to have them in Park City, but they moved it to Salt Lake City this year. It's like a marketing company. And I'm one of like, I don't know, 20 speakers, right? So
Nice.
so I'll be there for 2 or 3 days from Wednesday to Friday.
Okay.
But other than me in September, I don't know anyone else in Salt Lake City except for the NiftyCon folks, which are some super nice people.
I just put my email in the chat. Shoot me an email real quick, because I'd love to connect and meet up with you in September.
Yeah. Cool. We'll do.
I love this. Amazing. Thanks everyone for joining these. I still figure out what exactly the format is, but I just really like kind of learning from juicy people like Shaggy, because like I said, I found him very striking the first time I met him, and he's been the top host in Salt Lake. And one of my little side mission quests is to help like the ecosystems outside of New York and San Francisco and London. Love those cities, lived in a couple of them myself. Nothing against them, but I just think that there's tons of people who've dispersed and moved into these, you know, like less popular but still extremely valuable communities, and just helping people find each other and do those things is just really important to me. And would like more. Yeah, there's certain cities that just feel entitled to things happening, and then I notice that other cities just actually make things happen, and I'm like all about supporting that momentum. So Nicole says many co-working spaces are looking to host events. Might be a good combo with what you're saying. Yeah, we're trying to develop some like venue partnerships with co-working spaces as well. And then other businesses, like a lot of companies have huge offices and they're happy to host. It's just there's not really a mechanism for making that happen. But like if you know, there's all these huge companies, especially in New York, that have all this office space that just goes unused. Shack 15 would be a great one. Okay, I'll check out Shack 15. Amazing. Well, thanks everybody for joining. I hope you have a great rest of the day, and I'll post this on YouTube probably, if you're okay with it, Shaggy.
Wonderful. Yeah, absolutely. And if anyone has any questions, just email me at shaggyeels@gmail.com. So Eells is EELLS.
Amazing. Thank you, Shaggy. You're the best. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Have a great day.